This is a video I've been planning to make since I first began my channel, and now the time has finally come. Hey there, I'm Big Anklevich, podcaster, author, and toy enthusiast, and it's time to talk collecting strategy here on Big Anklevich on toys. More particularly, I want to talk my own collecting strategy.
Strategery. Lockbox.
But I'm not going to limit it to that. There are tons of different strategies out there. Everybody has one, and it's what we all use to decide what to buy and what to pass over. Now, even though everybody's talking about how the toy business is in trouble, what with Toys R Us, KB, and many other toy stores disappearing over the last while, and kids seeming to only be interested in playing video games, despite all that, there's still a metric crap ton of toys and collectibles out there to partake of. The internet has opened up the world. You don't have to just buy Hasbro or Mattel. You can also buy Revoltech, Takara, Fans Toys, and so on, or even some kind of Chinese knockoff. You can get these international toys wherever you are if you're willing to pay extra. Therefore, you have to decide what you're going to go after and what you're going to ignore. The people I hear about the most are the completists. People who pick a particular line, like Marvel Legends or Funko Pops or Mega Constructs or whatever, and they make sure that they get every single thing that gets released in that line. Even the Comic-Con exclusives that cost hundreds of extra dollars on eBay. They have shelves lined with figures as well as bins and bins filled with those that can't fit on the shelves. And they can tell you what wave each one came from and why this one is better than that one. I'm not a completist, but I can understand the drive to do so. I've got a little bit of that compulsion lurking beneath the surface. The closest I came to being a completist was back in 2012 when I became enamored with the idea of collecting Pez dispensers. I saw them as a really low-cost way that I could indulge in that completist compulsion. So I bought the Marvel guys, the DC guys, the Toy Story guys, the Star Trek guys, the Star Trek Next Generation guys, the Star Wars guys, the Disney Princesses, the Monster Inc. guys, the Wall-E guys, the Cars guys, the Scooby-Doo guys, and so on, until I found myself buying the set of the first 5 presidents of the United States and wondering how I could get my hands on the next 5. I tried to temper my compulsion by insisting that I would never buy characters from properties that I didn't like Hello Kitty or My Little Pony. But I remember the disgust my podcast co-host Rish Outfield looked at me with when I bought Miss Piggy, a character that I've always disliked, just to complete the set of Muppets. I eventually made it to the end. I collected everything that I wanted to have. I couldn't keep going with my compulsion because there was nothing left that I could buy. Every now and then I see a new character they've released that I feel like I should add to my collection, but that's pretty seldom. I just don't buy them much anymore. I put it behind me. Being a completist is really expensive. Spending too much money on action figures can damage relationships with family, specifically spouses. So I try to avoid it. Something that goes hand in hand with completism is choosing just what it is that you are going to collect. Do you collect a lot of different lines or stick really closely to just one? For example, my collector friend and G.I. Joe correspondent John, who was a guest on my show in December with his Icy Lake diorama all decked out for Christmas, is really specific with what he collects. John, what is it that you collect, as if I didn't already give it away, sir?
I collect vintage-style G.I. Joes, so anything made from 1982 to 1994, and then they did some re-releases from 1997 to around 2006. And pretty much anything that I can incorporate with those size figures. So I also have some the real Ghostbusters Firehouse, or I have some 1/18th military diorama pieces as well.
Okay, my podcast co-host Rich Outfield is also a collector, and he keeps his collection to certain things. Rich, what is it that you collect?
I collect Marvel Legends, the 6-inch Marvel figures, and then to a lesser extent I collect Star Wars, and to a much lesser extent I collect Transformers.
Okay, so that's what you collect, but within those constraints, what do you do?
By the time Transformers came along, I had to buy them myself. So I was really picky of who I got. And now, all these years later, I only collect those same characters that I had as a kid. So Soundwave, Megatron, absolutely no Autobots, although I do have an Optimus Prime. Like the planes, the Skywarp, Thrust and Dirge, Ramjet, the Combaticons.
So you don't collect any of the modern G.I. Joes, the ones that came out like the 25th anniversary ones?
No, the 25th anniversary and later stuff I kind of avoided because I had already been collecting the vintage style G.I. Joes for 15 years or so at that point, and I was too invested at that point to try and collect something else.
And do you collect one of each or multiples?
For the G.I. Joes, I generally collect one of each version of a character. So there's like 8 or 10 Snake Eyes in that run of figures, but I only have one of each, whereas like a Cobra Infantry Viper or a Cobra Trooper, I will army build, because if you only have one of each, there's like 400 G.I. Joes and like 100 different Cobras. So it's kind of an unfair battle.
And what do you do with them? How do you display them?
I like to build dioramas with my G.I. Joes. I know a lot of guys are inclined to just line them up on a shelf and display them that way, but that doesn't do a whole lot for me. I like to get in there and play with them and make battles and do diorama scenes with them. Otherwise, they just kind of sit in a box. I have a whole garage full of toys that are in boxes at the moment. I'm trying to get out into dioramas, but it takes time.
And what scale do you collect and why? For
myself, I'm pretty invested in the scale that I'm at the moment, so I'm not really interested in expanding. I don't have the room or the money to keep going. But anything that I can get in that 1/18th, 3 3/4 inch scale is fair game. If I feel like I can incorporate it with my collection and turn it into something fun.
And this one may be harder to answer, but why is this what you like to do?
I think it started out of a sense of nostalgia. I wanted to go back and relive, my childhood, get things that I could never afford as a kid, things I never had as a kid, and it just kind of snowballed. So I started collecting as an adult in 1997, and I've been going pretty strong ever since.
Thanks, John. Okay, now, Rish, you said that you love Marvel and Star Wars, but to take it further, I once asked you which you would prefer to get, an action figure or a statue, and you said a statue, hands down. Why do you like and collect statues?
Well, for a long, long time, I couldn't afford any statues. They tend to be on the higher end. They're something that you display on a shelf. It's not made for kids to play with. And so I used to see them, especially the comic book shops in Los Angeles, and I knew I could never afford any of them. I could barely make rent when I lived there. But once I had money coming in, disposable income, as they say, then every once in a while I would grab a statue. And the thing about statues is they can capture, I don't know if it's a moment or a look or an action in a way that maybe an action figure can't. They tend to be larger, and so the detail will be there. And if it's a talented enough sculptor, he can get like Colossus's face just perfect. The way that he is organic metal. You know what I mean? that kind of thing.
Okay, thanks, Rish. So there you go. There's some different views on how to go about collecting among thousands that are out there. Now, here's my personal strategy. I collect toys from all sorts of properties. My all-time favorites are Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and Marvel Comics, but I get toys from dozens of other movies, TV shows, comics, books, and even things that have no media to support them at all. Just whatever it is that I like enough to want to spend some money on. I don't get everything they put out, though. I pick a few of my favorite characters or vehicles and get those and only those. For example, I picked the main characters of Star Wars and got the Black Series versions of those. There are dozens and dozens of other Black Series figures, but I've only gotten a few of my favorites beyond those main characters. I often think of how my toys will display when I decide what to buy as well. I've got these big bookshelves. Each shelf is about 12 inches tall, and I want something that will fill that space as much as possible. 12-inch figures, or 1/6 scale, does the best job, of course, and I have several of those. 6-inch figures, or 1/12 scale, can look okay, like how my Avengers fill the shelf because some of them are flying behind the rest. 3 3/4-inch figures, or 1/18 scale, are too small to look good by themselves. But when posed in combination with a vehicle, they're pretty good. I've recently taken to creating these dividers to put on shelves to make the displays fill the shelves even better, and I really like how they've turned out. I think they look great. For little things, I've started assembling dividers that will fill these entire bookshelves on the east side of the room. They'll have tons of tiny compartments that I can use to place smaller toys into. It'll be like this side, except without the books, so I can still get a fair number of smaller toys and still find a place for them. I also generally don't get multiples of anything. I like to call my collecting strategy archetypal collecting. The dictionary defines an archetype as a very typical example of a certain person or thing, or an original that has been imitated. I think it's the perfect word for it. I want the thing that most closely represents the image of, let's say, Optimus Prime in my head. Once I get that thing, I don't need any more versions of it. I've already got it, and there's no need for more. It's like the platonic ideal. The toys that I buy are just echoes of the actual original thing, and whatever it is that matches that original thing best is what I want to buy. So when I bought this Optimus Prime in 2005, I had the thing that most closely matches that platonic ideal. That is the archetype of Optimus Prime. However, I got this Titans Return Soundwave in 2016 because I didn't have a Soundwave, and it closely resembled what I remembered Soundwave looking like. As time passed, however, I'm less pleased with this guy. I think I'm going to sell him on eBay and see if I can't save up for a masterpiece Soundwave, because that is what actually fits my archetype, my platonic ideal. So today we have an exercise in platonic idealism. It's time to play Find the Archetype. It's like To Tell the Truth, if you've ever seen that old game show, except in this case, we're trying to decide which one is the real archetype. I have in my collection from years and years ago the old Toy Biz Marvel Legends Beast. This year, Hasbro has finally put out their version of Beast. Which one is better? Which one is the archetype, and which one just wishes it was? It's Beast versus Beast, a battle with some real stakes involved. These two figures are fighting for their lives. Let's take a look at them both and see what we decide. Okay, so we've got the Toy Biz Beast here, and we've got the all-new, well, relatively new, now it's a few months old, Hasbro Beast. And we're going to see which one of these guys stands up, which one counts as the archetypal version of Beast. First of all, this Beast here, he comes with one head, okay? This one also comes with one head, so that's not a difference. The difference is that his facial expression must remain in the open mouth yelling face, whereas this guy can do that one because his jaw hinges, or he can close his mouth and just be normal. He's still angry faced. He's still got his angry eyes, but his face can change up for you a little bit. He doesn't always have to be yelling. Now, I know there's a lot of people who have made third-party sculpts of Beast's head that is a regular face. You can even get one where he's got glasses so that he can, hang upside down, read a book and stuff like that. But that didn't come with my Beast. That's something that's a third-party thing that you got to buy extra, which, from what I've seen, most of them cost about as much as the Beast figure did in the first place. So there is that. Now this guy also comes with extra hands. He's got the open hand so that you can, when you've got this bent back, you can get Beast into some pretty cool handstand positions using that hand. And then we also have a fist. Otherwise, you got some pretty regular hand positions here. I guess with this hand, he could hold something. Maybe a nice bottle of brewski. This one, yeah, I don't know that you can hold something with that hand. That's kind of an odd shape. I want to say that I've seen people make him hold a book or something like that with this hand. Somehow. Maybe it goes in there and his thumb kind of holds the spine in place and it spreads out in front of him like this. I'm not sure how, but the hand, it's an interesting position, but it's not necessarily a useful position. So this would be a hand that's not doing something generally. They both, now the hands on my old Toy Biz one has that Toy Biz thing. This Beast doesn't like to stand up, I've found too. It's really difficult. Brand new, and yet he wants to fall over all the time. Now my Toy Biz Beast has these kind of hands, which was a thing that they did a lot in the Toy Biz days. His thumbs, his finger, and then his back 3 fingers all have a hinge. So you have 3 different positions. He can be pointing, I want you, for the X-Men. I don't know, he can be drinking tea with the pinkies out. Oh, except for you're supposed to just have the pinky, right? When you drink tea, not all 3 fingers. He'd be giving you a thumbs up. Yeah. Hey. But, so his hands are more versatile. And I know a lot of people complain about the hand articulation on, you monster. You absolute monster. Stop falling over all the time. I know a lot of people complain about the articulation on the hands because it makes the hands kind of less useful on the old Toy Biz figures. They were really into that articulation stuff, and they started getting really into it. Like each finger would have a hinge, and you could make your character flipping somebody off or whatever. It was pretty cool, but it does make it sometimes hard for them to actually hold their guns and stuff like that, which, at least with Beast, he's not going to be holding a gun. He's going to be, I don't know, he might be hanging from the roof or something like that, although he'd probably be doing that by his feet and hanging upside down. But he's not going to be holding a gun, so it's probably not an issue to have that frustrating kind of articulation on his hands. Both of them have toe articulation. You can bend the toes back so you can get some more interesting. He's got some cool sculpting even under his feet, which gives his toes a kind of neat padded look, whereas the other beast was just straight up flat-footed. That might be why the other beast actually wants to stand up better than this one does. Oh, now I've done it. I should have never picked him up. You can get them both into really cool positions. They both are really posable. This new beast has the butterfly shoulders. So you can have him putting his arms way back. Oh, and they're even furry inside there, which is cool. They're sculpted to be furry, so he can really reach back. This one does not have that particular articulation. The color is a little brighter on the new beast. It's much more of a blue, whereas this guy's more like a steel blue or something like that. Feels more, truthfully, more of a realistic color, this darker blue, than this bright blue. Depends, I guess. Do you want realistic or do you want comic? And this guy is probably more comic. Because I'm sure when he was first brought about, they had much, they weren't doing a whole lot of different shading and stuff like that. And some of this guy's blue color may very well just be because he's old and he's kind of fading, because he is really old. I don't know how long, I don't even know what year it was that he was released. I got him years after he was released. I bought him off of eBay, and he came with a lab coat and something else, I think, too. Maybe glasses. I don't remember what it was. He came with something else, and the lab coat stank to high heaven like cigarettes, because the guy who apparently owned this before me was a big-time smoker, and Beast himself kind of smelled like cigarettes, too. I had to soak him in, like, soapy water several times to get the smell off of him. And it eventually leached out, probably into my lungs by way of secondhand smoke or something like that. That might be where we get some of this color of in the blue there. It's unusual. So looking at these guys, I have to admit I like the face on the old beast. Probably better than the new one. It's got a good, you can see the eyeballs, you can see the eyes. It's got a pretty darn good sculpt to it. I like the way the hair looks. It's kind of swept up in a realistic way. The ears are cool. The nose is nice. And, an opening jaw, you would think could be a problem, but this guy, it doesn't look bad in any way. So I really like how it looks. Another thing that I really like about him is his proportions. You see, he's got that kind of the really big chest, and he's kind of hunched a little bit the way he's standing. And look at how far down his hands reach. He looks like, his arms are really, really long, really kind of almost gorilla-like or monkey-like in their proportions, which makes him look like more of a beast and less of a man. And we look at, all right, you just lay down and have a nap. We'll take a look at the other beast. The face sculpt it's not bad, but it's not great either. The mouth is just kind of a big empty pink thing. I guess you can see his tongue in there a little with some teeth, but it's way wide open, and there's no eyes. I don't know if he should have eyes. Generally I'm really into getting guys that are more comic specific or comic accurate, but I really like the eyes on the other beast much better than this guy's eyes. His head seems a little smaller too. Let's put the two next to each other. Yeah, this guy's head is much bigger in comparison, and it seems a little small on the body, to tell you the truth. This body is much more burly than this one. This one's more kind of lanky, and if you look at his arms, we'll put his arms down. They're more kind of regular. The other beast, you can see his arms will reach all the way down to like his calves. And this guy's arms are just coming down to about the normal spot on your thigh. Yeah, I don't know which one of these guys is the winner. It's interesting because, I think that in the end, I'm still going to go with the Toy Biz Beast. I know everybody loves this Hasbro Beast, but it just doesn't have the qualities that I love as much as the old Toy Biz one does. They can both do most things that I want. They can get into great poses. But this guy seems like a furry little tank, and that guy looks like a lanky little monster. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad figure, but I still think that I prefer that one. It's interesting. You'd think it's been like 15 years at least since he came out. He does have more movement. He can do more in his chest. He's got the turning there that's available, and this up and down crunch, whereas this guy's just got one solid chest with no movement. But I have never found that to be too much of a problem. I think that might be one of the reasons why everybody loves this beast so much more than this beast, because of that. But in the end, the aesthetics of it is what really gets me, much more so than the mechanics. This is all right. I like the blue color, I like the head, I like the proportions better on that one. And I guess that means that this one is not our archetype. This one is actually a pretender. This one will remain as my archetype. The Toy Biz Beast surprisingly wins out over the brand new Hasbro Beast. All right, folks, so that's what I decided. Time to return that imposter and put the real archetypal beast on the shelf with the other X-Men. And my Parsec Awards from my excellent science fiction and fantasy podcast that you probably ought to be listening to because it will seriously change your life for the better. You can find it right here on YouTube. Just search Dunesteef Podcast or follow the link in my description. I suppose I don't need to tell you to like, subscribe, and comment because if you want to, you will. And if you don't want to, me telling you to do it isn't going to change your mind. So I won't tell you to like, subscribe, and comment. What I will do, however, is say thank you to all the people who have subscribed. I recently hit 100 subscribers, and that's a pretty cool milestone. Well, let's hope that we can make it to the next milestone even sooner. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time here on Big Anklevich on Toys.